There's nothing that says that you have to hit that golf club as far as you can every time. But going back to the conversation that you kind of started there, golf is very
Mhm.
much a sport now. And there's a real reason behind that. So, if and you go back a little farther than I do, I think, and which is a good thing. But if you think back to, the 80s and the 90s, and you think about the PGA Tour, there was like this phenomenon that happened that doesn't really happen that much now. And the phenomenon was that the players were always hitting it out of each other's divots. They
Right.
were always hitting it out of there wasn't a tournament in the 80s or 90s where a player wasn't going to have to hit at least one ball out of a divot. You don't see it that often now, but that really made me think, why is it that we used to hit out of each other's divots and now we don't do that as much? And the reason is pretty simple. I actually went and interviewed so many different people that were involved back in that time frame, but they were involved with Spalding, they were involved with Dunlop, they were involved with Top Flight, they were involved with all the brands of yesteryear that used to make wound golf balls or
Sure.
Balata golf balls, right?
Mhm.
And my question to them was all the same question. What was the theoretical limit for a wound and or Balata golf ball? How hard could you hit one of those things and predict what it would do in terms of flight? And the answer that I've been given routinely by most of these gentlemen is somewhere between 163 and 168 miles an hour. That was back in the day the theoretical limit for that golf ball. That's what it could handle and still predict ball flight. So the funny thing is that you have guys like Corey Pavin, right? Not a big hitter. And then you have guys like Johnny Miller, who by all accounts was strong as a mule. The
Right.
problem is that Johnny couldn't use his strength to his advantage to beat Corey because the golf ball couldn't take the extra speed. So the field was really leveled for a long time because of the golf ball and the way the golf ball behaved. So now we have this urethane golf ball, which I'm not a huge fan of, but we have this urethane golf ball that just doesn't want to spin at all.
Mhm.
But it's also manufactured more consistently with better practices and better technologies. And now the theoretical limit is somewhere between like 223 and 230.
Wow.
Okay, so now all of a sudden we go back to the same example between Corey Pavin and our buddy Johnny Miller. Now all of a sudden, Johnny Miller's got a huge advantage because Johnny Miller can mash a golf ball a heck of a lot harder than Corey Pavin can. And I know people don't like to hear this, but there is an advantage with club speed. There really is. If you
No,
don't think that's
obviously,
true,
it's becoming
I can't
obvious
help you.
now. Becoming more and
Now,
more obvious, and again, with the advent of Tiger Woods coming out, he's coming. I mean, 96, the 96 season. Guy says to me, I said, no, he's going to win at Vegas because that's a long hitter's golf course. That's
yeah,
when Davis Love dominates it because he's a pro. So there's a lot
Tiger
more
Tiger's
running.
a curious case though in that time frame because Tiger was right there at the change of the ball, right?
Yeah.
He was right there at it.
Yes.
And the ball change absolutely killed Greg Norman. Absolutely killed him. Greg Norman went from the best driver of the golf ball in the world as he was to not a very good driver of the ball at all. And it wasn't because his swing changed, it was because literally the ball changed and it killed a
Oh,
lot of careers, the ball
yeah.
changing,
Okay.
and they just couldn't adjust fast enough. But the thing that I don't think Tiger gets any credit for is if you go back early Tiger 97 and you look at his stats driving, a lot of people will claim that Tiger was a horrendous driver of the golf ball. I disagree. Now, we didn't have like TrackMan comes out in 1999, 2000. So we don't necessarily have all of the data from back in that period of time with Tiger. But one thing that has been kind of widely considered is that in that 1997, 1998 time frame, Tiger was right around 180 ball speed. Now think about that for a minute. Nobody was anywhere close to 180 ball speed back
With a
then.
Titleist Professional, which is in essence the last iteration of the Bellata ball. Yeah,
Correct. So
absolutely.
I don't think that Tiger was a bad driver of the ball. I think that Tiger was actually a phenomenal driver of the ball. And then when you dig deeper into the stats and you look past the percentage of fairways hit, you start realizing that, yeah, he didn't hit a ton of fairways because the ball was spinning so much at that speed. but he did have a lot of open looks at the green. And that's actually the stat we look at on tour now. It's not about percentage of fair. Nobody cares about that number. Like
Right.
it's a simple number to understand and kind of look at, but we're more interested in good drives is what we call it, which
Right.
simply means that you hit your tee shot, you hit it solid, you're putting up like a 147, 148 smash at minimum, and you have a free open look. I don't care if it's in the rough,
Sure.
but you have a clear open look at the green. So I think Tiger actually is interesting because if you watch Tiger now, and I'm talking about now, if you watch Tiger now, he's never hit the golf ball off the tee straighter, ever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, since they put the rod in his leg, which is kind of what his right leg is now, is basically a rod. Since they put he's never driven the ball better. And the reason I believe is not so much because of the injuries. I think it's because the technology has finally caught up to Tiger. And
Yeah.
that's where I think that the game has really evolved is there's been a massive change in the way we play the game, not because the courses are changing, but because the ball is completely changed. The equipment is completely changed. And now everybody has a big watermelon on a stick and they're easy to hit. And if they're easy to hit, well, then by God, you can swing harder. But going back to our conversation about sport, if we kind of take this whole conversation we just had and we think about it, okay, there was no advantage to swinging harder pre 2000. So you could be savvy and you could have style and you could be all over the place. And like it didn't really matter because you didn't have to hit the ball that hard. But now these guys are showing up and they are tattooing the golf ball every single time they hit it, whether it's with a wedge, an iron, a driver, it doesn't, they just tattoo the thing.
Right.
So the weird thing is that a lot of the golf instruction hasn't really evolved with the equipment. And a lot of people are still like holding up their Ben Hogan's 5 lessons. And Mr. Hogan, God bless him, yeah, that book is great. I'm not saying it's a bad book, but it is a old model for a completely different situation than we currently find ourselves in. Because with the current game, if you are going to accelerate the golf club enough to create ball speed high enough to compete at whatever level you're trying to compete, you are going to have to learn how to break and slow down the golf club efficiently and safely. And if you watch a golf tournament this week, I promise you there's at least one person in every group that has a taped up lead wrist. And the reason is because they're not efficiently breaking the golf club and they're having to use their arm to create the break that takes the bend out of the shaft
Mm.
versus the more prescribed model that we're now seeing, which is we want to use the leg, the left leg. Or the lead leg, I should say, excuse me. So we are seeing that, in my opinion, that a lot of people are hanging on to these traditional swing models, but they have to evolve because the game has evolved and now it is more of a sport. And you can't really argue that. We went from, let's call it 170 to 230. That's a 60 mile an hour ball speed difference. And
Yeah.
you're going to have to figure out, the thing that a lot of people don't understand about the golf swing and the reason that I absolutely can't stand speed training, I think it's maybe the worst thing we've been doing to golfers. But the reason that I say that is because most people, and I do mean most, like 98% of people I've ever measured, they have a V8 engine and they can swing it with the V8. The problem is that they can't slow it down.
Mm.
And the body will never allow you to accelerate something that you can't slow down. Your body won't let you injure yourself. It's trying not to let you injure yourself. So at the end of the day, where most people go wrong is that they have this V8, but when they go out and try to drag race, it looks like a four banger, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not getting the speed they create to the ball. And the reason that's happening is because, as we know, the ground forces tend to be way late. And the ground forces are what we use to create leverage in the golf swing. So if the leverage is there, we can break the club safely and efficiently. And I literally have, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, boys and girls, that can put up, 150, 160 ball speed. I do. And it's like that used to be considered world class. But now I've got prepubescent kids doing it. So we've got to understand that the game, as much as we love it, as much as we want to preserve it, as much as we want to keep it the way it's always been, the cat's out of the bag and the athletes are here now. And you can't, like I was just at the Ryder Cup you can't look at the range anymore and not see athletes. I mean, that's all that there is anymore, and it's just a completely different game.